Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
The great man himself, one of the best in the business, without question, Bob Pompeani. Sir, welcome.
How are you, Steve? Yeah, I moved to a better spot. You never know what connections are going to be like.
In the airport, it's like anywhere. It's crazy. So, what do you want to look for in preseason game one? I mean, as somebody who has the ultimate experienced eye of doing these things, what do you look for?
Well, I think, a lot of people will say, it's boring preseason. It is if you're looking for outcomes that don't matter, because they don't matter. What matters, though, are all these little battles that you see with position players. And I think if you're a fan of a team, the Steelers have several of them, starting with the left tackle position, and Dan Moore's trying to fend off Broderick Jones. We'll see that. Kendrick Green has reimagined himself into I don't know what he is right now. He used to be a center, then a guard. Now he's catching passes on the jugs machine after practice. So maybe there's a role for him in the backfield as a big blocker, or somebody's going to catch a touchdown pass. Who knows? I think that's interesting to see if they utilize it. They got some really good, big, young people at the goal line with Darnell Washington coming in. We call him Mount Washington. I think it's going to be very interesting to see some of these young wide receivers play. Year two for George Pickens, although he won't play all that much. But Calvin Austin, we haven't seen him really at all other than this training camp. And he looks, got tremendous speed. So there's a lot to look for individual progression, and I think we're going to get a better opportunity to try to dissect who's doing well when you see games like this as opposed to daily practices.
When they'll have obviously these scrimmages that they'll have against other teams along the way. What have you found more value in, seeing the scrimmage or seeing a preseason game?
Well, I honestly think both. It just depends on how much of it you see. Like in this situation here, I don't know how much time. Mike Tomlin pretty much said everybody's going to play who can play, and I think that's a good thing. Some people will say, why are you going to risk Kenny Pickett? Well, because he's a second-year player who's only had really 12 games experience, and they got a whole new, offensive line. They got communication issues they got to deal with, so there is value in this. But I think if you watch practice on a daily basis and see some of the stuff they do up there, you get a longer look, a bigger sample size as opposed to what we see. Although I think in week 2 here, when they play Buffalo at home, you're going to see guys in there for a lot longer.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The value of playing, to me, you can't get better unless you play. Practice is important, but you can't get, that's my opinion, you can't get better unless you're actually playing. There's something about game speed that's a big difference. What kind of read have you had on Joey Porter Jr. so far?
Tough dude. Seems like he's, not fazed by getting beat, and even though everyone talked about the viral play that George Pickens made, one hand leaping over him, that was really good coverage. He had nothing to be ashamed about, and he came right back after that and made an interception in practice. So he didn't get discouraged by having someone sort of posterize him. And I think when you're a young person in this league, you're trying to do that. You don't want anyone to take advantage of you, and if they do, then it's about the next play.
How much of a difference have you seen in the offense, considering guys like Pickens and Pickett and so forth are now into their second year of running it?
Well, yeah, I think especially with Pickett, Steve. I mean, this guy, he came in totally different situation last year, third string, trying not to make mistakes. And, if you play enough sports, if you're trying not to make a mistake, chances are you will. And I think that's going to be one of the big storylines of this preseason. How much are they willing to trust him in terms of giving him more of this playbook while they still want to do what they do, which is identify as a physical run football team, but you still have to make plays from play action. And if you can get production out of that running game, it would help him. But I also want to see them give him more responsibility. I think he's earned that based on how he ended the season. I think he's earned that how he's played in the preseason. Very accurate. Most practices, he's like 11 for 12. He doesn't miss. So I expect a big jump for him. But I also think it's all tied to how they play early in football games.
There was a way that they played last year that kept Kenny away from making the big mistake as often as possible, especially down the stretch. Have you seen them now, because they have more confidence in him and he's shown it? Have you seen them now be, quote, a little more daring with what they want to do downfield?
Oh, yeah, there have been more downfield passes. Again, though, this is going to be the true test, Steve, whether or not they do that in these games, especially early in games. Last year it didn't occur until they needed to do it. There's a big difference when you expect it to happen and when you don't expect it, and especially if your defense has to be aware of the run game. That's that play-action game. Things can change in football over the years, but you've watched enough of it to know this too. If you win the battle of the trenches and you win up front, chances are that defense has got to respect that, and they could open up things down the field. That does not change over time. So I would expect, yes, to see more of that, and I think they trust him a lot more, and I think you're going to see more of the playbook. So hopefully we'll see some of it in these early games. Probably not all of it, but I'd like to see a play or two that shows me that they're going to willing to go. The first play of practice in this training camp was a 45-yard throw down the field to the middle of the field, which is something they didn't do enough of at all last year. And I don't know if that was a statement they're making right off the bat, say, here we go, or not. We'll see.
Well, how have you felt about the front seven in camp so far?
Well, I think it depends on Montrevious Adams defensively. Yeah. This Keanu Bennett, Benton, you're familiar with him from Wisconsin. Yep. He's like a big body. I didn't realize how big he was. And, they kind of have all these rookies listed as third and fourth string, I think, out of deference to the veterans. But I would be shocked if he didn't end up being starting soon in this defensive 3-4 with Ogunjobi on one side and Cam Hayward on the other. So I think Keanu Benton's a rating. In fact, he was a wrestler, and he seems to, technique-wise, have a lot of things going in his favor. So, but like anything, you got to get the experience, and whether or not we'll see it earlier in the season or not. If not, it'll be Montrevious Adams, who's had, been around here for a few years now. So I think they trust him, but they really would like to see the second-round pick Benton get it in there early in the season.
Do they have the potential, in your opinion, based on the personnel you see? Do they have the potential to have solid sub-packages that are so important?
Oh, I think there's no question about that. I think if you look at what they do with, again, this is all predicated on pressure. The thing I like about Benton is the fact that he could occupy people, which means more of the offensive line is going to be concerned with. Cam Hayward is just defying the sands of time here. He just keeps getting better despite his age. Ogunjobi, the one difference you'll see from him, Steve, is the fact that he's totally healthy. He had an off-season, that he could train and get ready for this. Last year he did not have that and was kind of injured. Lost a big contract with the Bears because of it, signed here, but now he's got an extension. He looks much better. And I think if those guys up front do what they're supposed to do, guys like Watt and Highsmith, Nick Herbig and other Wisconsin guys look good in this camp so far. And it all comes down still to defensive back play. Beyond Porter, they lost Trice already to the IR. Patrick Peterson seems to be rejuvenated. So, it depends on injury. It depends on who can step up in positions that don't have as much depth as some others.
Bob, we'll let you go. Appreciate it very much. Looking forward to the broadcast. You always are brilliant of it. Thanks so much.
Hey, Steve, I really appreciate it. Always an honor to be on with you, and wish you well this season as well. Should be a fun year, and all of a sudden it's here. I can't believe it. Christmas is right around the corner.
At least we get to finally talk about games.
Oh, thank God for that.
Yeah.
Practice is practice. Some guys say, well, how's they look? I say they look big and sweaty. Check back with me in 3 weeks.
Bob, thanks so much. Safe trip.
All right, thanks. Have a good day.